we came at this from the point of view of investment, and that is, how could we create graphene that industry needed? And then what would be the method to do that? And so that's what we worked on with the Fraunhofer Institute for Applied Solid-State Physics starting in 2016. The idea of creating large, thin, and defect-free flakes. According to the Graphene Council, more than 45 industries will benefit from large, thin, and defect-free graphene flakes. And I think this is not my correct presentation, so I'm just going to get through this anyway. How is the graphene market segmented? It's segmented by the number of atomic layers to begin with. More than 3,000 is graphite, between 11 and 3,000 is nanoplatelets. But then below that, 10 atomic layers or fewer is this miracle material, graphene. As Kevin said, it's the lightest, thinnest, strongest, most electrically and thermally conducting material ever discovered. And it's because of the unique properties at the nanoscale that graphene can do things that graphite never could. But the key to graphene is the lateral flake size. What we find is that the optimal strength of graphene, being 200 times stronger than steel, occurs at 30 microns in lateral flake size. The lower you get, the more brittle the material becomes. And so when we look at graphene that may be in the 1 to 7 micron size in lateral flake, it becomes brittle as a material. And 2.5 years ago, when we first started dealing with the Department of Defense, they were very off about graphene. And the reason they were off about graphene is they tried it in ballistic protection. And instead of being 200 times stronger than steel, it was brittle. It shattered. It couldn't be used for realistic ballistic protection. And then along came the German company Bosch. They did a 3-year study, and it concluded that graphene can replace copper. But the larger the lateral flake size of the graphene, the better the electrical conductivity. So these are the things that we tried to address in the work that we did. We use a method called electrochemical exfoliation, and that is to take the graphite, put it through an electrochemical process, and inject hydrogen between the layers of graphite to create these large flakes. Now, we don't actually make large flakes. What we do is we preserve the large flake size that exists in the graphite. And that's the difference between the top-down and the bottoms-up method. When we work from the bottom up, we're really dealing in nanometer scale graphene. So basically 2 orders of magnitude smaller than what is naturally occurring in graphite. Now, people say, we've never heard of graphene. Well, that's true. Most people haven't yet heard of this miracle material. George Gilder says it's about to have an $11.5 trillion economic impact. And this chart is just the beginning. This is showing you what's happening. Graphene started out being first isolated in 2004. The 2 researchers, as Kevin pointed out, won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2010 for that. And every year, we've seen the graphene usage in products growing. Last year, we were thrilled to see that on average, 1 new product was introduced every week with graphene. This year, we're seeing 1 new product being introduced every day with graphene. But it's been limited because there is no source for large, thin, and defect-free graphene flakes. Really what we've been using is this range of materials, things like graphene oxide, which is the separation of graphite in a harsh way that results in a carbon-oxygen bonding. The material has some nice properties to it, but nothing like real graphene. Then came along reduced graphene oxide, which tried to get rid of some of those oxygen defects, but still not very strong and not very conductive. For large, thin, and defect-free graphene flakes, there are literally thousands of high-value, high-tech uses. These are just a few of them. We are talking with NASA about using graphene to de-weight spacecraft, because obviously you have to put that weight into space. And if we can reduce the weight by 30%, a third, you can get more into space. We're talking about using graphene in electronics. Right now, electronics create a lot of heat. The heat is due to resistance. The resistance can be eliminated to a very great degree by using graphene instead of copper for electrical interconnects. Aviation, Richard Branson is well known for the last several years trying to champion using graphene to reduce the weight of commercial aircraft by maybe a third. And in renewable energy, graphene can be used for everything from long-haul transmission lines to connect new and renewable energy sources to consumers. One of the areas where we've done a little bit of work is in supercapacitors. And here, this is very interesting because graphene can be used as the electrode material in supercapacitors. An industrial supercapacitor might cost $1,000 to $3,000, but using $6 worth of large, thin, and defect-free graphene flakes can have these results. First, the specific capacitance remains the same as the charge level increases. So as you use the supercapacitor to rapidly charge, we see that with the current materials, reduced graphene oxide and carbon black, the specific capacitance decreases, whereas the specific capacitance of high-quality graphene remains the same. Why is that important? Because as we move to electric vehicles that need to be rapidly charged, high-quality graphene can do that. We believe that we will see a transition from spherical graphite in electric vehicle batteries to using graphene. About 20 to 30% of the weight of an electric vehicle battery is the anode material, which uses spherical graphite. That can largely be replaced by 3 atomic layers of graphene. So not only will we reduce the graphite used, which will result in a cost savings, and wean us from the supply chain issue, because China produces most of the spherical graphite used in our electric vehicle batteries, but we can increase the charging time, or decrease the charging time rather, to minutes instead of hours because of the high electrical conductivity of graphene, and without producing heat, which currently is a huge problem for anode materials. So one of the things that we face as a challenge is not end user customers, because we have significant demand. In the last 2 weeks, we've had orders for 3 metric tons, except we can't produce those yet. So what we've done is we've pursued a licensing model for our graphene. And we're currently in the middle of that. We've just signed a letter of intent with our first manufacturing partner. And so I probably have gone on too much here, and I would love to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.